Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your host, Michelle Albers, and today I have a returning special guest, Spoons, for this enjoyable discussion. I think it's going to be. I have a feeling we're going to have some fun with this one, and it's going to be intentional. I'm going to say it that way. So, welcome, Spoons.
Hi, thanks for having
You
me back.
Oh, I'm excited you're here. And we're not in a car this time, albeit I'm sad that I'm not with you. It's great to see you in this way as well.
Right, right.
You want to set an intention for us today?
Well, I was thinking just before we got on this recording that I just wanted to have fun. So that's the intention I would like to set for this episode, just to have fun with
Um,
it and an enjoyable conversation.
I love that. I want to tell just a smidgy, like a quick story before we dive right in, because then I think we're just going to go. But so Spoons and I have this beautiful relationship where we talk on the phone on occasion. And every time we talk on the phone, we dive into something where we both have like these aha moments, and we tend to go places that I never would have ever expected. And so I'm kind of excited to see where we go today because we started this conversation very, very briefly the last time we talked. And then we were like, hey, do you want to like do this on the podcast? And you were like, yeah, I feel like that's a good idea. So let's do it.
Absolutely.
So where
So,
we
yeah.
started was with intentions.
Hmm.
Like the actual, like the tagline of this podcast. What if we set
Right.
intentions with everything we do? And you started to tell me a little bit about how that has impacted your life, and I'm so curious. So let's go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So there's been this interesting thing. So I've been doing a lot of rideshare the last year. And with that, I started setting intentions because I wanted to see how that was going to affect certain aspects or whatever. And with that, I started noticing certain little changes. And there's still a lot of things I'm trying to figure out with that puzzle with that. But, it's just at one point I realized, oh, I'm doing the tagline. I'm like, what if we set intentions with everything that we do? And just seeing how that affects the outcomes of your day, or your week or your month. And just kind of with me, I've been taking it day by day and just sometimes hour by hour changing the intentions and seeing how that changes the world around me. It's so interesting.
Oh, that's cool. So you do it like hour by hour.
Sometimes, yes.
Is it depending on how your day is going? Like how
Yes.
rideshare is going, kind of a thing? Or maybe there's some
Yeah.
stagnant energy in left over, or tell me more about that. I'm super curious.
So, like a big one that I set a lot of days is to provide a relaxing environment for people. And
Mm.
so, with that, you can get a variety of things that pop up or come in. Sometimes it's just other women that were looking for a female driver. Uh, they'll pop into my space and they feel very relaxed because they have somebody that they don't feel um, nervous about or whatever. There's some of that shows up. Then there may be somebody that lives in some sort of housing situation where they don't feel very safe, and I've provided them with a very short ride where they can kind of decompress and relax. um I don't know, you just see a lot of different stuff like that one in particular. Usually I may have to change an intention after that to lighten the mood. And I've provided this relaxing space for someone, but now I need maybe somebody to come in and share a fun story or something to kind of bring the energy back up so I can refill somebody else's cup. So that's what I mean by changing it, you know, sometimes hour by hour.
That's amazing. I love what I'm hearing from you, and I don't know if this is actually intentional or not. It's just a little bit funny thing to say when you're talking about setting intentions very intentionally.
Yes.
But I'm hearing you taking into consideration both their needs and your own.
Absolutely.
Like if it starts feeling too somber, you set the intention that the next few fairs will brighten things up and lighten things up. And
Yes.
then I don't know, I just think that's so cool. The other thing I'm hearing a lot of is observation,
Yes.
mindfulness,
Yes.
pause.
Yes. And so that it brings up tons of questions. It's like, okay, so how much of setting your intention is just you changing your perspective on the world and being really tuned into that and looking for it? And how much of that is the world recognizing a spark that you put out?
Oh, I have the goosebumps all over. The whole time you said that last part, the first part and the second part, I was like, it's cold in here. I'm like, no, it's not. That's spirit. Like, it's not
Yeah,
cold in here. That is your goosebumps, Michelle. Oh, that's
yeah.
amazing.
I just
Yeah, which came first, the chicken
and
or the
it's
egg, you know?
yeah, exactly. So that's the other thing I was going to say. It's really a chicken or egg situation. You're not going to know, and I think it's both. But
So when
it's
you're doing that with your day to day, like with your fairs,
mhm.
do you find yourself bringing it into other places in your world as well? I feel like if you're doing it that intentional and that regular, I keep using the word intentional to talk about intentions, which is a little weird, but if you're doing it on the regular like that with the mindfulness and observation and I feel like I'm hearing a lot of openness as well. Like you're just
Mhm.
inviting it to be inspired
Yes.
to happen, but not like demanding it or requirement. There's not a lot of attachment here, which is
Yeah,
also
there
cool. It feels free.
yeah, it's also trying not to put an expectation to it because really I wouldn't have thought, especially with relaxation and providing an environment for people to just kind of chill out in. It didn't occur to me like some of the really stressed out uh people that will be drawn to that. And
Oh,
so
we're
that
talking manifestation now, like of like
right. Yeah. And it's not to say that every time I set that I get people that are in such a bad way. And I don't even take the brunt of it a lot of times. Sometimes it's their drivers beforehand canceled them 2 or 3 times and they've been waiting for 2 or 3 hours for somebody to pick them up. But
oh
they don't
wow.
take that out on me. They come in and they go, "Oh, I can take a breath. Now I'm getting to where I'm going," sort
Yeah.
of thing. So it's just interesting to see how some of the stuff comes about. I still don't know what to make of it. But one of the things I've liked doing it from kind of this perspective for a while because when I was first starting up, I was like, well, what do people want? And I kept like trying to chase and figure out what 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 makes a good ride share for people, because I want to provide a good service.
Hmm.
And what I realized is I need to actually, what do I want? What do I want in this environment? And people that will be drawn to that will be drawn to that. And that's not to say that sometimes I get passengers that don't enjoy the vibe. That's fine. It happens occasionally, but for the most part, it works out. It's really interesting. And now I'm not worrying about chasing an unknown factor. Now I just set the space.
That's so powerful and aware. Like the awareness that I hear in it is so amazing. And I think about like if you just think about setting intentions as as a general like practice,
Mm-hmm.
it does require a pause because you're not setting an intention. Like it's not an intention if it's not mindful. I guess that's how it feels to me. Like it can be a demand or a wish or a hope, but I feel like intentional, at least my definition of intentions is it's mindful. For me, it's also heartfelt, and it's non-attached. It's like, well, I'm going to put it out there and then let's dance. Let's just see what happens. But at least I know I've showed up from my best and highest self to create an environment that feels safe for me and amplifies my skill sets and then
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's almost like you're a magnet then attracting sort of similar energy to you. And obviously, I mean, not every single, for in your case, ride is going to be like, oh yeah, this is, awesome. There's going to be, it's not always going to like, but that's where the not having the expectation happens. But I think the other thing is when you're grounded into your intentions that really are set from the heart and for your best and highest good, I feel like you are more grounded then. So if somebody comes in that is off on the energetic homeostasis alchemy thing, you're
Mm-hmm.
grounded into it in a way that you can also hold that space still. Like there's not a, it's easier to be in your highest self when you have some intentionality around that, I guess. Do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. Well, and I also like, I want to provide that good environment for people. So I will also, when I start feeling I can't do that, I stop. Sometimes it may just
Oh,
be for an hour to go and eat or something to ground myself again and then start back over, or maybe I'm done for the day. I really am trying to approach this in ways that I didn't do in my past career as a nurse, because it's like you have these people in front of you and they need you and your needs come later kind of deal is how I always
mm.
treated that. But the later didn't really come. It's
Yeah.
like I'm tired. I'm just going to go to sleep and I didn't take care of myself. So now this is me trying to make sure I'm balancing that stuff out. It's kind of this interesting space before there's other things that I want to do. There's other services I want to provide to people, but I feel like this is a good testing ground because I can start and stop and learn those boundaries with myself and others. And I don't know, it's kind of like baby stepping.
Or giant stepping. I feel like I'm sitting here in reflection I'm thinking about this from an energetic perspective. And also I was just in a hospital. So I'm thinking about that energy. And then I'm thinking about the energy in a car with people you don't know and
Mm-hmm.
how close those quarters are, right? Like both
Very.
hospitals and cars have a lot of close together energy that can get intense or not, but it can.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about, do you find that setting this intention about how you're creating your space energetically helps you with that energetic boundary of like not gathering everybody else's clutter in within their energy, or do you feel like that's not really related?
So I've had a couple of opportunities where I'm noticing how other people's energy that I'm too open.
Oh,
I
I
had
can relate to that so hard.
I've had this one person and that stands out in particular. And so I have a little bit of probably ADHD. I have trouble sometimes focusing. And so it's really something that I try to control with just making sure that I have enough rest.
Mm.
If I don't have enough rest, then I can get really unfocused and it takes twice as long to get things done. But I was having a good day, and then I went and picked this person up, and all of a sudden I missed the turns on the map like 3 different times. And not like just I missed this little road, so we'll just turn around and come back. It was on the interstate. I just kept so it'd be like I don't know how long it ended up taking for me to get this person to where they were going, but it was just like I couldn't I couldn't follow the directions, and we were having this interesting conversation. And when we get to their house, they go, "I really don't even want to go in," because they had in-laws visiting, and they were nervous about it. Walking back into their own house because they had their spouses and family there, and they were dreading that interaction. And I'm like, how much of that was me having an ADHD moment, and how much of that was them not wanting to go home, and that
Right.
energy pouring out into me, making me make wrong hurts. It was just a really funny experience to me. I was like, oh, I didn't say anything to them about it, but I was like, okay, noted.
That's such a great, like, from an empathy standpoint of like the question I always ask, is this mine? Because it's like that might have been partly yours. And
Yeah,
also very much of that might not have been yours at all. It was just you picking up what was going down in the back seat,
yeah,
with their energy.
yeah. And the funny thing was is they had landed in Atlanta, and we have this transport in Chattanooga that picks people up from Atlanta and Nashville and all these places. But that's all they do. They bring them back to Chattanooga to their little hub, and then they don't take them anywhere else. They have to find their own way the rest of the way. And it's like the guy's flight was delayed or whatever. So he decided to do this transport. And he said it ended up taking him longer to do that transport than it would have if he had just waited on his delayed flight. And it's like, yeah, dude, you just didn't want to go home.
That's so fascinating. So you're using it very intentionally with your job for sure, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
with how you show up in which I think is so important in a small space like that when you have a lot. I mean, you're meeting energy over and over and over and over again. So I think it's a beautiful practice that you've started. And I also love how you connected it as almost like I don't know that I want to say it this way, but it's how it's coming in, but almost like a do-over. Like you didn't take care of yourself when you were the nurse, but now that you're not the nurse anymore, you learned from that experience and now you want to be really mindful and give yourself that love and nurturing that you needed then that you learned from and now you get to, offer to yourself now. I actually think that's a really beautiful because like who would attach those two things, nursing and rideshare? Do you know what I mean? But
Right.
but but that's an amazing awareness and just observation and something that you can offer to yourself, in a new and different way. And that's
Yeah.
something that you maybe
Well,
craved in the past, but didn't know how to give it.
yeah. Well, it's getting into that talk about cycles and
Yeah.
how we keep meeting the same thing. Doesn't matter. You can change so much about your situation, but you're always going to come back to that same initial problem. So, that's why those things connect in my mind because it comes back to that overgiving and not
Yeah.
taking enough for yourself, um, to make sure that you can't fill somebody else's cup if yours is empty. So you got to make sure to keep it topped off.
Well, and just even as you were saying that, I'm like, and now because you're being so intentional and because you are filling your own cup, your ride share experience is
Mm-hmm.
one that can nurture both sides of the coin. It can be
Yeah.
nurturing for you and for them because you're not overgiving, because you're not depleted, because you know how to navigate the energy of your car and of your presence with
Mm-hmm.
intention and kindness. That's just such
Yeah.
an amazing thing.
Well, and a lot of people, when I will say something about, okay, yeah, I used to be a nurse, because they'll ask, people ask all sorts of questions getting in a ride share, and they don't see how those things connect. And I'm like, it's about helping people. If
Mhm.
you're A lot of people seek out, really, they just want to find a way to help other people, and that's why that particular thing appeals to me, because I'm like, okay, well, that's is something I can do. And, people need to get from A to B, and it can be complicated or not. I had a ride yesterday that was kind of complicated. The lady was in a wheelchair, and I had to, you know, get her situated in the car and then get her wheelchair in the trunk. And then I had to push her into her apartment. It was probably a little more than what I initially signed up for, but I'm glad I was able to do it and help her. So,
Yeah. So many things you don't think about?
right.
Well, and then you add
Yeah,
the
it's like I thought
intention.
my days of pushing a wheelchair were over, but no.
That feels a little bit like spirit going, see, you're doing
Yeah,
it. You're still doing it. You're still helping people. It's just in a different way. And we want to remind
absolutely.
you. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
You don't
really
have to do it in
amazing.
some big crazy way. You can do it in the little things every day.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I'm reflecting back on Sal Jade's conversation, this conversation we had last week, or maybe even the week before, actually, but where she was saying how, a healer doesn't have to be an energy worker or a massage therapist or a Reiki person. It can literally be a nurse, a childcare provider, a rideshare, I mean, there's so many
Mhm.
opportunities where we can be healers or a catalyst for healing in life. And it all comes down to, what is our intention? Where is our heart? Are we being mindful about our own care so that then
Mhm.
we can show up in a way that we are a spark of something, right? A spark of inspiration for others that
Right.
cross our path. And I think that's such a beautiful, I don't know. I feel like I walked through life without much intention and without a lot of awareness and just kind of in my own little inward misery on some level for a very long time. And I think back to those days and I think, gosh, would I have noticed if I got in your car at that time of my life? I don't know,
Yeah.
but I sure as heck do
It's,
now.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's so interesting, especially when I was first starting some of this intention setting, and I wouldn't say anything to the people about it. I just pick people up, and so many people would be like, "Wow, this is just so chill," or some comments. So that I was like, "Oh, they got it. They got the vibe. I didn't have to." Explain anything out. It's set. It's there. It's in the energy. They can feel it if they
Yeah, it's
want
there.
to.
It's there if they choose to receive it. And if they don't, it's
Right.
not theirs. That's okay too.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So do you do
Yeah.
it in other areas too, as forwardly, or do you feel like it's mostly right now within sort of your environment of your car?
I feel like it's very focused on this work aspect. And I want it to go into other aspects, but I don't know. I don't know what it is that's so difficult to set up in a practice that just is for myself.
Mhm.
But this other thing is like this shared thing, so it's easier for me to kind of put some focus into that. But also, yeah, I am still putting focus into myself because there's some days I'm just like, I want to meet some fun, interesting people, and I always put fun in
Yeah.
with that, because if you just say you want to meet interesting people, oh gosh,
Yeah.
there's some
Universe
characters
has a
out
sense of
there.
humor.
Oh, it does. Sometimes you set an intention and you go, okay, I don't think I want to do it that way exactly again. But that's the fun part. You learn with playing with the stuff, and you don't even have to put a lot into it. It can just be, hey, I'd like to meet somebody fun, or have a interesting good conversation, or it can be such a small little intention, and they always come around. I
Yeah, I
even
love that.
I even had one week, which I guess kind of sounds like a self-indulgent one, but I was like, I'd like somebody to put a $20 bill in my hand. And it happened. It took 2 weeks. And actually I'd forgot about it. But they did. They put a $20 bill in my hand. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I
So
love adding the
oh,
layer, like the really specific layer, because sometimes like at summits, halfway through the summit, people start going deeper and deeper into things and they start feeling a little like unsteady, maybe even at some point in it. And I always say, like, as we set our intention to ask our ego to step aside so we can be divinely guided, it's like if you're feeling a lot unsettled, it's okay to say in a kind and loving way or in the most gentle way possible. Like you can ask for what you need, even from spirit,
right.
you know?
Yeah. Even if it's just, maybe that's even just showing, hey, I need to take a breath and ground.
Yeah.
I feel like with a lot of that, it's just like figuring out how to, because I spend a lot of time floating. part of that, being a Gemini, very air. I'm very airy, so I can get lost up there in the optimistic stuff sometimes, and I have to make sure I come back down and ground really well.
Yeah. You said something about how it's easier for you to set the intentions when it's a collaborative thing. And I totally
Yes.
understand that. I think that's many of us have that same thing. And what I kind of heard when you were saying it, and I don't know if it's helpful or not, I'm actually chewing on it for myself as I'm saying this right now too, is I wonder if I thought of everything. Anytime I'm struggling with setting an intention for just me, if I thought of it as me and the collective, like it is a collaboration, it's always a
Mhm.
collaboration. And even if I make the choice for quote unquote just me, it does have a positive impact on the collective, assuming it's for the best and highest good. And if I can come at it from that perspective, does that make it easier for me or harder? Maybe it makes it more pressure. I don't know. Like I'm literally processing this as I'm saying it, but I just wonder if that would matter on the days where it's hard for me to just choose me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think even if I even if I can't get to those practices that are just for me, about me, and replenishing, if I can do this co-conspirating with random people, and
Yeah.
I think that's the part of it that's really fulfilling for me, is because I'm not attaching it to people that are in my life, and then you end up building that codependence type
Yeah.
thing. So this is like me trying to figure out how to not be codependent, but also I don't know. It's there's something in there.
Yeah, it's layered.
I, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what all that is, but yeah, it's you just have to take it steps at a time.
Well, and again,
So
that's so mindful. But like there's a lot of
mhm,
intention even just within that. It's like I'm not looking to create codependency here. I'm looking to be in my power for myself. And also it's okay if that also includes others.
yeah, yeah, because I don't know, that kind of goes into that whole thing of finding your feet and learning how to stand up and do the things that you're called to do, and not worry so much about the judgment that's placed with that. That's been another kind of growing experience for me, is because there's some of these steps you take and you feel called to do, and maybe you don't take some of the steps because you're afraid of how others are going to judge it. And yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I just kind of lost that thought. I
No, that's
went
okay.
somewhere else.
You brought in judgment, and I'm like, that's a big one. Or
Yeah.
fear of judgment is it can be a big one that can
Yeah.
kind of get in
Well,
our way.
yeah. Well, and I think I guess that kind of goes back to why how I was first setting up the rideshare and chasing what do people want? And then I was like, well, changing that to what do I want and what do I want to kind of fulfill for people?
Yeah, what do
You
you
know,
want? What do you have to offer? What feels
yeah, because
aligned? Like that's a great question. Like what do I want? What with
yeah,
regard to what I have to offer and how can I offer that in the best way possible? That's amazing.
mhm, yeah, because you're not going to be for everybody. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've probably learned is whatever you choose, um, some people you're going to be their savior and some people you're going to be their devil. And that's okay. It's just all in that perspective. You're doing the best you can with
Yeah.
what you're with. If you're trying to do things with a good intention, I feel like that's what's important. And you're going for me, where spirit guides,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and trying to let go of that, because somebody's always going to have a judgment for and against whatever you
Sure.
choose.
Yeah. Those mirrors, dang mirrors.
Yeah.
Right? Are
Yeah.
they, yeah. What are they reflecting? And depends on the energy in the room.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just learning to let go of all of that stuff and just do what you feel called to do.
That's so amazing. Such a good way to show up, it feels like, for yourself with a lot of, I don't know, I'm hearing a lot of compassion even in the why of what you're doing. I feel like it's like compassion lost is like the way it's coming in, but I don't necessarily mean it that way. But you speak a lot about when you were a nurse and how you didn't take care of yourself in certain avenues there. And I feel like there's a part of you now that is like, yeah, I'm gonna find that compassion, all that compassion that I didn't give to myself then. I'm gonna find it now and I'm gonna offer it up and I'm gonna do it on the regular. I'm gonna do it mindfully and I'm gonna do it um without expectation. I think that's another key piece that you mentioned, that whole, because expectations just bring disappointment, and a
Absolutely.
need for control that doesn't, you can have intention and, even hope and goals, but expectation is a whole messy layer that gets in there and kind of ruffles stuff up and can bring in so many I was going to say negative emotions or negative vibrations, but maybe negative isn't the best word, but definitely makes it messier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think learning to curb that. Because I'm always we've talked about this some. I know Sharon and I have talked about this some where it's about writing a story.
Mm.
We get an idea in our mind and we go ahead and we write the whole story. And you're really just putting so much limitation on where something can go by doing that. And it's not to say that it's wrong to write the story, but you are setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment.
I love I love that you brought that up because what's funny? For me, reading tarot is what gave me a big aha around all of that. Because when I think about working with other people, sometimes they want a very definitive answer. And I'm like, but the possibilities are limitless. So we
Right.
can go for the definitive answer, but sometimes when we get that definitive answer, then we get closed-minded around it and we get attached to it and we get expectations around it. And then that gets messy. And maybe that's a fine result. Maybe it's the perfect result. And also, what if there's more that like we can't even fathom right now because we don't have all the information that spirit does? And what if our creator has something different and more planned for us that leads to an extraordinary life that's beyond what we can possibly imagine? And it's like, so the open-ended, like, you know, I think writing the story can be really fun and really therapeutic and really helpful. And also, how you attach to or relate with or engage with that story can either get really messy or be really beautiful, depending on where you're at in any given moment. I'm not even saying there's a right or a wrong way necessarily. Um,
Right.
I just think like those endless possibilities, while sometimes feel daunting, with guidance cannot feel so daunting and can build some trust within yourself of embracing the unknown and enjoying the steps
Yeah.
versus demanding an outcome, so to speak. And I kind of am speaking from like how I used to show up and kind of my own ways of I used to do things and sometimes still fall into.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of my whole thing was I live so much in my dream world and I just wrote all the stories out and I wouldn't have a lot of interactions with people because I already played it out in my dream world. And so I already know what the answer is. Never giving the person the opportunity
Oh,
to actually it's that's so much of control issue that you can't even really understand how much that is you trying to control the entire world.
yeah. That's a
um,
whole nother door we could open. Maybe we save that one for the next time we chat on a podcast.
absolutely.
I feel like that could
Absolutely.
be a whole thing. I feel like this was a really good conversation today, and it feels like a good place to wrap it up. How do you feel?
I feel really good about it. It was fun, it was engaging, and I have enjoyed it.
I definitely had fun. And I definitely, you got my wheels turning about just the different ways we can be intentional and where it might come from and how it might impact not only our world, but the world of the ripple effect, right? The world of the people that we engage with. And I think you've created a really beautiful practice to hold space for perfect strangers. And I think that's a pretty amazing, amazing thing. But the other piece of that is I believe it feels to me like it started with you. And I think that's also a beautiful and important piece of these intentions that you're setting. And I don't know. Thank you for sharing it with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap for today. Bye. Be you every day.